I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight. This is our regular board meeting for the Cameron Park Community Services District. Today is Wednesday, June 17th, 2020, and we are starting our meeting at 6:34, and we will be observing the teleconference Zoom meeting protocols that are attached. So let's go ahead and start with our first item, our Pledge of Allegiance. And this time, let's see, who have I not asked to say it? Because what I like to do is just have someone recite it for us, and then the rest of us can listen. So have, Ellie, have I asked you to do it?
I don't think so.
Okay, Ellie, let's have you go ahead and just recite the Pledge of Allegiance for us.
I certainly will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you. Okay, and just letting everyone know, we have a public testimony section in our agenda, and it will be received on each agenda item as it is called. And each principal party on each side of an issue is allocated 10 minutes to speak, and individual comments are limited to 3 minutes, except for with the consent of the board. And hopefully Nikki will hold up a sign if we start getting close to that 3-minute mark to try to give you some warning, since we don't have our little light available anymore. And members of the audience are asked to volunteer their name before addressing the board, and the board reserves the right to waive said rules by a majority vote. So our first item on our agenda is the adoption.
Can we do roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's do that. Thanks.
You're welcome. Director Scobie?
Here.
Director Aston?
Here.
Director Carlson?
Here.
Director Wooten?
Here.
Director Morrison?
Here.
Okay.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, so adoption of the agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I will make a motion that we adopt the agenda.
And a second?
I'll second that.
All right, let's go all in favor. And Jill, just to keep things clear, could you just go read down the board names, please?
Director Scobie?
Aye.
Director Aston?
Aye.
Director Carlson?
Aye.
Director Wooten?
Aye.
Director Morrison?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is adopted 5-0. Moving on to our next item, we don't have recognitions and presentations, so we are now moving into open forum. And this would be Nikki. Do we have anyone who would like to address the board?
No.
Okay. Seeing none for open forum, we'll move on to our approval of our consent agenda. And do we have a motion?
Approval of consent?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me? It's Felicity.
Yeah, I'll move to approve consent calendar.
All right, do we have a second?
Director Morrison.
Second.
And
I think I heard Director Carlson second that.
yes, all right. So please, Jill, if you could go through and read everyone's name.
Director Scobie?
Aye.
Director Aston?
Aye.
Director Carlson?
Aye.
Director Wooten?
Aye.
Director Morrison?
Aye.
All right, the consent agenda has been approved 5-0. Moving on to our next item. Our general business would be item 8, our public hearing to approve resolution 2020-13 establishing appropriations limitation for fiscal year 2020-21 for the Cameron Park Community Services District. And I believe since this is a public hearing, we should now open that public hearing. So the public hearing is open, and let's see, Jill, did you want to, or Vicky, did you want to give us some background on that?
Yes, the appropriation limit is required every year. And basically, it's a calculation using the cost of living factor that is given to us from the county. And we apply that cost of living rate to our current appropriation limitation. And that's what we get next year's limitation.
All right. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none. Do we have any questions from the public? Taking it out to the public?
I can't hear you. You keep breaking up, Monique. Is anyone else having that?
Not having
No.
that problem.
No.
Yeah, I'm hearing about half of what you're saying.
Okay.
I didn't hear your whole question.
Holly, did you have any questions regarding this item?
Let me see here. Go back to my notes here. Yes, I did. I spoke with Jill about this. I had a question for Vicki. Who is it that requires this?
This is required
Appropriation.
by the state.
By the state. And we're requesting the full calculation.
I'm not sure what you're asking, Holly.
I'm not either.
We have a cost of living factor, don't we?
Mhm.
So we're asking for the full calculation
Yes, we're asking for the full cost
of the
adjustment as
1
required by the county.
as required, state regulation with the calculation requested by the county,
Yes,
and we're requesting the full valuation.
yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Holly. And let's go ahead and take this out to the public. Nikki, do we have anyone who'd like to speak on this topic?
No.
Okay, well then we'll go ahead and we'll close the public hearing and take, or do we close the public hearing after the vote or before the vote? I guess,
Hearing.
Yeah, I think you close the public hearing and then take the vote.
okay, so we're closing the public hearing. And then Jill, if you could please read everyone's names.
Director Scobie,
Aye.
Director Easton,
Aye.
Director Carlson,
Aye.
Director Wooten,
Aye.
Director Morrison.
Aye.
Okay, so our resolution 2020-13, establishing appropriations limitation for fiscal year 2020-21 for the Cameron Park Community Services District has passed 5-0.
Yeah, we should have had a motion in a second.
Yeah.
What?
You need to
Oh my-
follow protocol for every vote.
Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. Thank you.
So we need to redo it. You need to have a motion in a second.
I'm sorry. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
I will motion to approve this resolution number 2020-13, establishing appropriations limitation for fiscal year 2021 for the Cameron Park Community Services District.
And a second.
I'll second.
Felicity?
Yeah, Felicity seconded.
All right. Thank you for that, Holly. Jill, once again, please.
Director Scobie,
Aye.
Director Easton,
Aye.
Director Carlson,
Aye.
Director Wooten,
Aye.
Director Morrison.
Aye.
Okay, so now our resolution 2020-13, establishing appropriations limitation for fiscal year 2020-21 for the Cameron Park Community Service District has passed 5-0. All right, moving on to our next item, number 9, public hearing, approve fiscal year 2020-21 preliminary budget. And do we open the hearing before we hear from staff? Or do we open the hearing after we hear from staff?
Jason's there.
Normally, you would hear staff's report first and then open the hearing.
Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and hear from staff.
So the district staff is really pleased to present the fiscal year 2021 preliminary budget. I was talking with Director Morrison earlier today, and I think that reflecting back on, this is our third budget binder that we've provided to the board and to the community. And I think that every year we just get a little bit better at this and a little bit more thorough and a little bit more detail and a little bit more colorful. So just really hats off to all of the staff that participated in this, and a special thanks to Vicki that pulled it all together. So before I get into too much more, I wanted to see if Eric, as the chair of the Budget and Admin Committee, wanted to make some opening comments.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you, General Manager. I'll echo some of what Jill said, is that as the chair of the Budget and Admin Committee, I am pleased to bring this forward to you for your consideration and your input. As it is every year, there's a lot to consider here. But after 2 reviews by committee and input from community members and conversations with staff, I believe we're bringing forward to the full board a very solid budget. And there's a few overarching pieces to maybe help frame some of this. First, I want to recognize, even before the events of the last few months, staff had been doing such a great job of extending or pulling back our timeline for planning the budget, so that we were planning to have more looks and input on this as we went along. So even before the extra work that happened along with the COVID situation, staff was doing such a great job preparing it for us. So it's worth recognizing that this was still completed in a good time in the middle of COVID. I want to recognize that staff is bringing to us a balanced budget, and that is a wonderful thing to report. We recognize that there is a lot in the future we don't know. We can't predict. All we can do is plan. And I'm grateful for this really solid plan that's taken us forward here. And it's worth saying, as Jill also said, this is not just a budget based on the work of the last few months, but the last few years in bringing programs and financial tracking up to date, as well as working with fire partners and just building more clarity and transparency, as we wanted to set our district well to run now in the future. So I'm really grateful for this. I'm glad to report there's beginnings of a plan for revenue from fire equipment or rental. You'll see that when we get to it. We've all wanted transparency and direction for that. It includes an LLAD budget that's come a long way to making needed corrections and identifying the true status of our LLADs, as well as beginning to address issues identified by staff and the ad hoc committee. A lot of work's gone into that. And we're bringing forward plans for reserves for fire and emergency services and parks and rec. There's just a lot of good things to report in this budget in the middle of a challenging time. So we've done a lot of work in the details, aiming to bring it to you as clean and as clear as possible. Having many eyes on this and perspectives has really refined this. And I am honestly looking forward to the process tonight with the full board to get your eyes on it, and the public too, and get your perspective in this. It's a living document, so let's keep it alive. And I'm looking forward to working on this together with you tonight. Thank you.
Yes, Eric.
Well, and we appreciate the Budget and Admin Committee's support and thoroughness. I think we had each meeting in May and June where it's about 3 hours each. So they really went through this with a fine-tooth comb, which was helpful to staff. So we appreciate your work too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just acknowledge that we have each one of our department heads here tonight. Whitney with Recreation, Mike with Parks, Jed with the Fire Department, Kate with CCNRs, and of course you've already heard from Vicki. So how we're going to go through things tonight is that Vicki is going to provide an overview of our budget numbers. And then each of the department heads will provide a brief overview of current services and staffing in their department, and then if there's been any changes. We are going to change it up a little bit. Usually we hear from Kate last, and I moved her up in the agenda along with Recreation. So we'll be hearing from them a little bit sooner. We will, once we hear from the department heads, we will also be talking about the fire and the fire reserves, and then also the recreation facilities and parks reserves. I'll probably wrap it up at the end, and then staff will take questions from the board members. We can, I guess, open up our public hearing. Staff will take questions from board members. Monique will probably open it up for public testimony. If you are a community member that is participating tonight, please take questions throughout the presentation tonight, so that you don't forget your questions when we come to you at the end. We'll open it up for public testimony, and then after public testimony, the board will deliberate. So that's our agenda for tonight. I came across the next slide, Nikki, and I kept it in there. It's a slide that we used last year, but I thought it was a good reminder to everyone that we all have a common goal, and that's the financial health of the district to sustain critical core services into the future. And that we all have a different role in this process. Staff has done their analysis, the research, and we're making recommendations. The community is to provide input about the district priorities and service levels. And I'd really like to kind of stress about the service levels. We really hope that we get feedback from board members and community about, you know, are these the priority services? Are there additional services? Maybe there are service levels we need to change. So, and then the board to consider staff's recommendations and the community input, and then consider all that information and make a decision. So just wanted to, you know, say that yes, we're all here in it, and we all have the best interest of the district in mind. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Vicki.
Okay. This first slide it's a financial organizational chart of the district. And I thought this would be very interesting for the board members and the public to see in a visual way. We have 30 distinct funds. We have the operating fund with 5 departments. And then we have 27 special funds. And then we have 2 reserve funds. So it's quite a complex financial issue. Next slide. Okay, this slide is a depiction of how our funding sources are coming to the district budgeted for 2021. You can see that we've got 69% comes into property tax, 3% comes in for grants and other income. The JPA reimbursement is 17%, fees for service are 12%, and then the franchise fees are 3%. And I put a little bit of a legend at the top, so if you wanted to know what was in the grants or other income or the fees for services, you could see that. Next slide, Nikki. Okay, this slide is to visually depict how our budget, how the expenditures in the budget for 2021 are allocated. And as you can see, fire and emergency services has 61.7, administration has 8.9, fixed costs have 6.4%, weed abatement 1.9, community center 5.6, recreation 7.5, and then finally parks and facilities with 8.1. We have a funding revenue of $6,704,460, and then our expenditures are $6,697,417. We actually have a slight excess of revenues. It's about $3,043. Okay.
Vicki, can you explain what happened with the original estimate? Was about $10,000?
So Holly, we talked about that a little bit earlier tonight. That went to the bottom line was it was the strategic plan.
Yes, I just want this in the public record,
Oh, okay.
that our original May estimates were, but because we added that strategic plan money.
Okay, Nikki. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about administration as the Finance and Human Resources Officer. Administration is responsible for the finance, office management, and administrative support to the other departments. The department expenditure budget totals $591,694. We have 4 full-time employees. We have the general manager, myself, an accounting specialist, and a receptionist. We have 2 part-time employees, including the board clerk and safety coordinator. Next slide. Administration has a few changes this year. We budgeted for a strategic plan this year, and that's $10,000. We are anticipating a 37% increase in property and liability insurance. The insurance SDMRA is telling us that due to disasters around the state, that we're going to look at that kind of an increase. Retiree health benefits increased, and that was due to recent retirements and changes in benefit options. Increased employee costs, that's based on the labor agreement, and also compaction issues related to the increase in minimum wage, which was not addressed for the past 2 years. This salary increase can be found across the board, so you're going to see that in all the departments. We were also able to reduce our professional accounting services. We've been very fortunate to have their services, but now we find that we are at a place where we can handle the professional accounting services as well. It's very, very busy, but because we have reduced resources to do the professional accounting services, but we're making do. And that's my presentation for administration.
Kate, you ready to go?
I'm ready. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
So I'll be discussing the CCNR Fund 2 budget for the fiscal year 2021.
We can point to which tab that is too as we go to each section. That'd be helpful.
Okay, I am 22, I believe. I just pulled out the sheets. I believe I'm 22.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, Kate.
No worries. Everyone is ready. I'll begin. So the CCNR department, as you can see on the slide, is comprised of CCNR compliance and architecture review. There is 1 full-time staff for this department that covers the CCNR enforcement, the architecture review, and the administrative functions for the department. CCNR compliance applies to residential properties within the district's jurisdiction. We have more than about 90 different neighborhood CCNRs for approximately 7,000 properties within the district. Architecture review is a requirement of each CCNR. So it's a separate but related function, and staff facilitates the process for architecture review, which is, as you know, a committee of 3 volunteer community members, not board members, just community members for that. Architecture review reviews any exterior home project ranging from landscaping to a shed to an airplane hangar to a whole new home construction, exterior paint. Things along that line. Next slide. So operational updates. The budget for CCNR is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I'm not going to go through each line by line. If you have any questions about any specific line item that I don't mention here, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I would like to highlight the notable changes for the upcoming fiscal year. First thing is the software program that was purchased about a year and a half ago. We financed that over 2 fiscal years, the implementation fee. And the second and final payment for that was made during fiscal year 1920. So there is an ongoing fee, but the annual cost is significantly less. And the overall benefit of having the software is seen in efficiencies and better record keeping within the regular operations. The next notable item is there is a nominal increase to the legal fees. Staff is working on updating policies and procedures that are somewhat outdated, and some things that are not currently memorialized in any of our policies. So as we are putting those together, legal is reviewing them to make sure that we are in proper alignment for those policies. These policy updates are part of the district's work plan, and they are intended to employ best practices, reduce district risk, and improve overall cost of operations. In addition to that, there's other things such as new ADU laws that came out last year that require legal to review certain projects before we move forward. The budget for legal fees is for regular operational costs. If there are any cases that elevate to the board for legal action, at that time there will also be a budget allocation requested. So that would be in addition to what is budgeted for today. And then thirdly, architectural review fees had remained unchanged for several years. There was a slight increase in some fees for 2019, and fees that were not increased at that time received a slight increase in 2020. We will continue to review those on an annual basis to make sure that the fees are aligning with the cost of providing services. And those are pretty much the significant changes for my budget for the upcoming fiscal year.
Thanks, Kate. And Whitney, you ready to go with recreation?
Yes, ma'am. Hi there, everybody. So for recreation, we the department has myself as well as a full-time coordinator.
What tab are we on?
Oh, I'm sorry. 18.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So we have the 2 full-time employees, myself and a rec coordinator. We have a team of seasonal employees, kind of depending and fluctuating throughout the year, depending on what kind of programs are running. Majority of them come on to work for us in the summer. The budget, as starting last year, we were budgeted to be fully funded by program fees, sponsorships, and donations. And we have the scholarship program in place that we are hoping we're going to try to do our best to get the information out there, make sure people take advantage of the scholarship program to assist families that need financial help. And then if you want to click to the next one, thank you. For basically the biggest changes is just kind of putting together a new philosophical framework for how we're looking at things in recreation. We're really trying to emphasize on the quality and customer experience instead of offering multiple programs that are having few participants. We want to have less programming with more participants. is what the plan was. Leveraging partnerships, really working together and making sure that we adapting and making sure that we realize that the more successful our partners are in the program, our partners are in the community, that the more successful the CSD is going to be. So really working with our teams and making sure that we're maximizing field space, we're maximizing gym time, maximizing the pool, making sure we're getting all of our user groups in, and of course, generate some revenue with those rentals. Doing our best to seek funding partners by finding our common goals within Cameron Park, being cost conscious and efficient, and just, searching the internet, finding those coupon codes before we buy anything. Refresh and look at, just take a step back and look at our programming and see what we can do in Cameron Park, making sure that we're providing things that are unique, that are going to draw people in. We have this summer, the Aqua Body Strong classes that Marshall Medical sponsored. They gave us $5,700 to purchase 7 boards that people can do basically like a whole workout on in the water. It's going to be perfect for the summer. We can do it physically distant in the pool. And we're going to have classes almost every day once we get the pool up and running. That's going to be in like the 3rd phase of the pool reopening this summer. So looking at things like that, how can we connect with people in the community to help us run exciting programs that aren't being offered everywhere else. So getting people to come to Cameron Park, to come to programs that are unique and different. So that's kind of the gist.
Thanks, Whitney. And next, I believe, is Jed.
Okay, mine kind of all flows. We'll start tab 9 with the fire department operating budget, but it kind of flows into the weed abatement and fund 7. I don't know if that's how this PowerPoint's laid out. If you want me to go that way. So for 2020, 2021 budget, we don't have any major increases this year that we are expecting. We had a couple of decreases in line items with our computer hardware. Obviously, we had all our computers replaced this year, so we should be pretty good. So there's a big reduction on that one. The fuel was reduced. I know we've talked about it before, but I'll remind everyone, in the past, the JPA ambulance has always refueled here at Station 89 at our fuel vault, and the district has fronted the fuel on that. And then every quarter I go back and have to go back through, mark the fuel, and then we re-invoice the JPA for reimbursement. So we've eliminated that completely. We changed that back in January 1st of this year. So we're no longer providing fuel for the ambulance. They carry fuel cards. They can just go to the local gas station and that bill goes directly to the JPA. So the only vehicles that are fueling here at Station 89 are all the district vehicles, obviously all the fire engines and fire related, and then all the parks vehicles and the CCNR vehicle as well. So that's what the fuel is. So there was a big reduction on that because the ambulance costs a lot of fuel. We did have an increase in line item 5240 for professional services, and that's where we're for our DSA contract of $5,400 annually for the fire department. So that's our budget there. Like I said, other than that, no major changes for that. Moving on to the weed abatement program. Again, no major changes in their budget. I did have a big increase on line item 5240, the contracted services of $40,000, but that's where we're going to spend the money for the CCI grant, which is obviously reimbursed at 100% plus a 12% admin fee. During the next fiscal year, we're hoping to spend quite a bit of money on that between what's budgeted in the weed abatement and in the parks budget for the fuels reduction related stuff on all the CSD owned properties. Next slide.
And
then this is our funds. What's that?
Yeah, this is tab, the reserve is tab
20.
20.
20, okay.
Okay. Tab 20, I'll touch on this. I know Jill and I talked, when I made this, I didn't put anything in for the reimbursement of our fire engines when we rent them out. so what we did this year, we agreed on, you know, the $100,000 as kind of a number to start with. So we broke that up with a percentage. So 90% of what we make on rental income is going to go into Fund 7. 10% is going to go to the fire department operating budget on tab 9 for, and basically we were doing that to help offset the cost of maintenance on the engines and tires and any repairs that would be needed. If we are to make more than $100,000 this year, I think that would be up to the budget and admin how we need to split that up. I think $10,000 is a good number to put into the operating budget for repairs and maintenance on the fire engine. And if that cost goes up, I would recommend that the budget admin committee, you know, continue putting that into the Fund 7, or, you know, using extra monies to pay off the utility vehicles that are financed, or the fire engines that are financed, you know, depending on what kind of a year we have for rental income. So out of Fund 7, we have both fire engine payments for a total of $180,000. We do have 2 engine payments left on the current engine 89. We have $13,000 annually for the 2 utility trucks, $25,000 to replace 4 rear bay doors at Station 89. They're the original bay doors from when the station was rebuilt in 2002, 2003. So they are starting to get old and need to be replaced. We have $5,000 budgeted for office carpet replacement here at Station 89. And in this is where the money's going for the training tower that we received from the county. So we budgeted $550,000. We've already received $450,000. We just put $550 because we anticipate having to go back to get a little bit more for permits and installation and all that, which we're still trying to work out the final number of that. So we just kind of left that with $550,000 if we go over. And of that $550,000, $50,000 is what we'd like to have to start the Station 88 remodel design. I know we've been talking about this since last year, but we're hoping to move forward this year and hire a contractor to kind of at least give us some ideas and options of what we need and what we can actually do on that footprint there at the fire station. And then on here, we have $105,000 for replacement of 3 heart monitors that we have on our paramedic engines. The current ones we're running are old, and the FDA isn't allowing Zoll as the manufacturer to make parts to maintain them anymore. They're still working. It's just in the future we need to get those replaced. So what we have done is applied for a regional grant amongst all the fire departments on the West Slope, El Dorado County, because there's obviously several fire departments that need to replace their monitors. So we've put in for that. We don't know if we're successful or not. We should know by the fall. If we are, they could pay up to 90% of that. So the district would only be responsible for 10% of that. The reason I put $105,000 is I don't know what kind of grant that's going to look like, if they're going to give us the money up front for the replacement, or if the district has to front the money and then it's a reimbursable grant after we receive them. But I want to make it clear that if we are not successful in this grant, we are not going to purchase those monitors, you know, without some sort of grant funding. So our plan is to, if we're not successful, we'll work with the district's grant writer and see what else is out there. We should have some other options, hopefully within the next year, that come up for medical and EMS supplies. Any questions on that?
Thanks, Jed. And Mike.
Yep, I am here just getting situated. I had to retreat into my stepdaughter's room because little Oliver is teething. So. Okay,
tab,
so
Mike?
yeah, thanks. So it looks like tab 13 is where I'll start with the parks and facilities.
Oliver.
So tonight I'll be just highlighting the major changes, a little information on the parks, the community center, and the landscape and lighting districts. So I'll give everyone a second to get there. Move this out of the way. Okay, so the Parks Department staff are responsible for 7 developed neighborhood parks.
My computer
Oh.
froze.
Oh,
You're good, Mike. Go ahead.
okay. So the Parks Department is responsible for 7 developed neighborhood and community parks and 4 open space sites. Staff assigned to parks include a portion of the park superintendent, the maintenance foreman, 2 maintenance workers, and part-time staff. And some of the major changes that the Parks Department will be seeing in this next fiscal year is some more grant funding for the fire fuel reduction from the California Climate Grant. I've had some talks with Jed about putting some more money into areas like Gateway Park and Royal to continue to thin them out for fire fuel reduction. So we're going to be looking at that moving forward. They're working with the ad hoc committee and working through the LLAD budgets. It was decided that David West, even though it's technically an LLAD, it's used more like a community park with having a sports field on there. Unfortunately, the residents around Dave West don't pay enough money into the fund to maintain a baseball field adequately. So we felt like some funding of about $9,000 needed to go into David West in order to not only make the budget whole, but to start paying back the fund balance, which is somewhere around negative $20,000. And then this year, this is the first year since I've been here, we're not anticipating any Quimby funds, which is a good thing, which means our parking lots, our buildings, our roofs, everything is in good shape. So next slide. So the community center, staff that work at the community center campus maintain the assembly hall, the classrooms, the gymnasium, and the pool. Some of their day-to-day tasks would include janitorial work, plumbing, electrical, customer service, and ultimately operations of the swimming pool. And then the staffing structure for the community center is a portion of the superintendent and foreman's time, along with a full-time maintenance worker and part-time seasonal staff. Some of the changes that I'm bringing forward would include installation of ADA compliance doors at the main entrance. We're looking to put in doors where people can push a button to open the doors instead of physically having to pull it, at least at the main entrance. So we're going to be upgrading the existing lighting at the community center, interior and exterior. We're calling it the Energy Efficient Lighting Project. Part of the project is actually going to be starting underway here shortly. And then I'm also going to be looking, once we get through COVID, utilizing the park foreman a little bit more at the community center just to provide a little bit more support to the staff there and to take a little bit off the plate. So we're going to be trying to give some more staff support at the community center. And something that we started last year that we're looking to implement again this year is the year-round pool operations. Not 100% sure what that's going to look like yet with COVID, but that's our plan. Next slide. And then the landscape and lighting districts. So there are 20 different LLADs. 2 of them are not developed yet, but they are still allotted in our system. 6 of those LLADs are parks or landscaped areas. The rest of the LLADs are streetlights only. And I wanted to bring forward the recommendations that came out of the ad hoc committee that was created last fiscal year. So it was decided to allocate $9,020 to support David West's LLAD / community park. So by doing that, it's going to start refurbishing the negative fund balance, and we're estimating somewhere between 5 to 7 years, I believe, to see that LLAD whole again. We have eliminated turf grass at Bar JB, which will not only save costs and water, but also maintenance time out there. The residents were notified that are affected by Bar JB that pay into the LLAD, and we set up a town meeting to hear concerns and different ideas, and one person showed up. Haven't had any kickback on that at all. So most of the turf's already been removed. We filled it back in with decomposed granite. I am going to look at, since the fire fuel reduction program it's been a success, we're going to be looking at using Growlersburg a little bit more on some of the underfunded LLADs, which would be Cameron Valley and Bar JB, because they can get a whole lot of work done for not a lot of money. So we're going to look to strategically place them out there. Bar JA. So Bar JA has two funds. There's number 39 and number 50. 39, I believe, was the original fund that was set up. 50 was one that the residents that pay into Bar JA decided to up the amount of money that they spend or that they put into the LLAD. In the past, Fund 39 was absorbing all the payments for Bar JA. So we're going to be looking at reversing that trend and start billing both of them adequately until we can reverse the trend. Bar JA 39 has a negative fund balance of, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but Bar JA 50 has got a huge fund balance. So we're going to have to take some time and get those two to balance themselves out. And then the last part for the LLAD would be the street light. And it's on my list to continue conversations with PG&E. We were talking to them before COVID-19 hit, and all of our communication kind of stopped. The district does have some LLADs that are streetlights only that are underfunded and running a negative fund balance. So that conversation will kick back here shortly, I hope, and that we can have some recommendations or solutions to the LLADs that are underfunded. Next one, or that may be it. You want me to talk about the reserves, Jill?
And this is tab 21, maybe?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at an electronic copy here. So yeah, tab 20.
20 what?
21.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So when you're ready,
project,
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
So the projects and equipment that is requested out of the reserves, which isn't my, the normal operating budget, would be the first one would include a hydraulic utility dump trailer. The reason for this is because the district doesn't have anything other than trailers to mow on. We don't have anything to put green waste in. So we found ourselves a couple things. The first one is when we have the use of Growlersburg and it is not a burn day, we have a really hard time getting all the green waste material off-site. And one thing that we don't want to do moving forward is leave piles of green waste debris sitting until we can burn them for fire reasons. The other one too is staff spend a lot of their time picking up green waste, mainly leaves in the fall. Having a hydraulic utility dump trailer would allow staff to just load the trailer and then hydraulically dump it instead of loading stuff up in white bags, which not only takes forever, but they get really, really heavy. And it would go a long ways on staff's back to have some equipment like this. And the third thing is that, the district tractor, we don't have a trailer that can pull the tractor. We don't have one big enough that's weighted or high enough rating. So having a hydraulic dump trailer that would be rated high enough to pull the tractor around, which we could really use it over at Rasmussen and Krista and stuff like that. The second item is a perimeter fence at the disc golf course, Bonanza Park. So a lot of the park is already fenced off, but there are sections where there's, vacant lots or people do not have fencing on their property, or it's just because we're trying to protect Deer Creek. So the perimeter fence at the disc golf course is something I'm proposing. It would be purchased by the CSD, and then we would utilize Growlersburg to help us install this fence. Another carport in the maintenance yard. So last year I purchased a carport which houses our tractor and chipper and keeps them out of the weather. One more maintenance carport would allow us to put all of our implements, golf cart, and any other pieces of equipment we have out of the weather, which would ultimately make them last longer. I'm recommending purchasing a vibra plate, which is used to compress decomposed granite. So around the lake, Rasmussen, Northview Park, the dog park, or Paul J. Ryan, there's a lot of decomposed granite pathways around the district. And so whenever we have to do major work on them, I rent one for a couple $100 a pop. Buy a new one for between $1,200 and $1,500. So it just made sense. And the last one on this list is so resurfacing the gymnasium and dance room floors. The floors haven't been resurfaced since the community center was built. It's a practice that's usually done every 6 to 8 years, and we're creeping up on 10 here. So I had somebody come out and look at it. It's definitely time to resand, reseal, and repaint the gymnasium floor and the dance room as well. Next one, Nikki, if there's any more.
No.
So that concludes our presentation from staff. And again, hats off to everybody for, pulling together a really good budget for us to talk about tonight. And we'll turn it back over to Monique.
Thank you guys for going through all that and keeping us apprised of what's changed in this budget versus last year. Let's go ahead and go through our board members. And let's go ahead and, because we're on Zoom, I think it's easier if we just go through one at a time. So let's go ahead to see. Ellie's the highest in my list here. Ellie, do you have any questions regarding this budget you'd like to ask staff?
Not at this time. I may later on, but to be honest with you, I think the budget is coming along very well. But I'm comparing it to 2 years ago. So, but other than that, no, I have no questions at this time.
Great, thank you, Ellie. Next one in my list is Eric. Eric, do you have any questions?
I don't. I am interested in hearing what my fellow board members have to say, because I've asked all my questions in committee as well as conversations with Vicki and Mike.
Great.
So I might have some in response to others later.
Great. And Holly, you're next on my list. Any questions for staff?
Yeah, for Vicki, you talked about the reduction in the cost of our professional services. Do you have an estimate of that? I know we were paying for all those audits and getting our books approved. So hopefully substantial.
It was quite a substantial cut, but I don't have that right in front of me.
Okay, you can get that for us.
Sure.
That would be great. It's got to be substantial.
So Vicki, would you estimate that it's probably around, $70,000, $80,000? I mean, we were averaging about $80,000 a year for BTD, weren't we?
And now we're at 10,000.
Yeah. And then when is our next audit due?
The next audit is due. We probably will start it after year-end close and like September-ish, October-ish.
And what's our estimated cost of a normal real-time audit for the
$18,000.
Oh my
I haven't done that in a long time.
Which I believe is 5240 there.
Yes. Did you hear my answer, Holly?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's about $18,000.
Okay, that's much better. Oh my God. Thank you. That's great. Let's see here. I had a question on what is the status of our this is for Kate and Jill, I think. The status of our building repairs litigation. I'm seeing the cost of legal under your tab, and is that a real estimate of what we think our legal costs will be? Where are we in that process?
Are you referring to the construction defects?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Case?
Yes.
That's separate than my legal budget, so I'll have to defer to Jill on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the community center, warranty work, litigation. I just received a fairly substantial update from our attorney on that. They are in litigation right now with several contractors. There is no cost to the district for that work. It's a sharing, whatever they recover for the district, they get a portion of that.
So where do you,
Good.
this maybe isn't the time to ask, but just where are we? It's June. Where are we with?
They're in litigation. I think that COVID slowed them down. I was supposed to get something right after the first of the year. I didn't get anything, and I reconnected with them about 2 weeks ago. Got a very lengthy email from them, and I'm trying to arrange a meeting right now.
So my concern is we knew that there were some serious defects, mainly seem to be water. Are we anticipating any additional costs? Is that somewhere in our budget for any possible fixes before we get a resolution?
Mike's not recommending any immediate repairs, and then once we have a settlement, then that would go into the Parks Reserve, and then probably Mike would come forward with some priority projects.
Okay, I'm just worried about that possible cost and any further damage. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Holly. Next on my list is Felicity.
Okay, hi, I just had to unmute myself. All right, well, I really want to thank Jill and Vicky for meeting with me and briefing me on the budget and answering lots of questions. And also, as other people have said, I appreciate staff working so hard to create and the subcommittee, a great budget in a tough climate. So my only two questions are related to the recreation programs. And one is, what is the plan to advertise the recreation scholarships when it starts to make sense to do that?
It'll be a combined approach, making sure that we hit it in the e-newsletter as well as on our social media. We have a good amount of people that use it right now, so probably, or that have used it in the past. So reaching out to them, letting them know, like, hey, these classes are available, and don't forget, you can like reapply for these funds. And we're open, like if anyone else has anything else they want to see us do to make sure that that information is out there. Once we do get back to printing our activity guide, we'll have a good size advertisement, for lack of a better word, in there, making sure people are aware that it's available.
Okay, great. That's fantastic. And then similar to a question I've asked in the past, I've been reviewing the rec budget, and I know, and I really appreciate that you're working to make it a sort of a cost neutral programs to the extent possible, I guess, that, the amounts that come in to support many of the programs. But I'm just wondering, I'm still not able to see that connection in the budget. So I'm just wondering if that is a couple layers below what the sort of high level budget that was presented to us.
Yes, and that will be, you're lucky that you're on the Parks and Rec committee, but committee, because that'll be at the committee level where we'll be providing and kind of talking more to that like lower level stuff that outlines exactly what's going where with those numbers that you see in the binder.
Okay, fantastic. I agree. I am lucky to be on that committee. It's very exciting this year. So those were my only couple of questions. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Felicity. I too was on the Budget and Admin Committee, so I've been through this budget ad nauseum. Probably spent more time on it than I should have, but I'm really glad to see staff building upon what's been done over the last couple years. And if you were to go back and compare this budget with our very first one that was built from scratch, you will see all of the improvements, all of the additional information, and it's just heartwarming to see us actually, getting our feet underneath us and having a balanced budget. So I just can't thank staff enough. Before I go out to public comment, board members, anything else pop into your mind that you'd like to ask?
One follow-up comment, if I may, just to Felicity's question about advertising the scholarship. So Whitney, depending on where this lands in the year, of course, I'm a teacher, and so that's going to be first and foremost in front of me. But I know in other school districts, there's a collaboration between rec departments and schools, particularly to advertise programs and scholarship. I know at school where I work, there's been direct flyers to schools. So I don't know if that's something that is already in your planning, or if that's just something you can add, just an additional thing.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, because the schools can really identify those target areas that would make good use of that.
Definitely. Yes, that's a great idea.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, then let's see, our agenda says that this is a public hearing. And so we are now going to open the public hearing and hear from our community. And Nikki, do we have anyone who'd like to speak?
I don't see anyone.
All right, see.
Barbara.
Oh, Barbara.
Yep.
Yeah, Barbara,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. I only have one observation here, and that goes, it is regarding the pie chart on tab 5 of the department program expenditures. I found it very curious to see that fire department emergency services spends 61.7% of the budget. And the only reason I bring it up is historically, it's always been a 70-30 split. So it looks to me like that is no longer the case. And I'm just bringing it to your attention. So, which is fine. But when I hear about, if, you know, in the past about the costs of the fire service and this and that, well, it looks to me like they are spending less of what they were always given, and the rest is being filtered to other places. So that's what I have to say on that. And then I'm also going to speak to the 3.5% raise on top of the 4% raise. I talked to Eric. He knows I do not agree with this. I've done a lot of research. And the reason I don't agree with it is because of where we're at now. Down the road might be a different story. What is problematic for me is none of your people from the paperwork that was provided to us last year they make over and above the minimum wage because they're at different steps, if you will. So I know we have to give them the 4% raise, and I'm all for that, but I'm not for another 3.5% at this time for everybody across the board except Jill. I'm not in agreement with it. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't think you're going to have a summer in any programs. So I don't know what people you bring in your part-timers at $13 an hour. You don't, in my eyes, pay them any more than $13 an hour, part-time summer help. I see down here it says, seasonal positions, minimum wage plus. So I'm just going to impress on you to be penny wise, because we don't know what's going to happen. So even though we're saving in other arenas, it's going to push up your retirement costs. And plus, you don't know what your PERS health is going to do. PERS is not going to have their numbers until July, the latest I've ever seen it. I've never seen it this late, ever, in my 41 years of being involved in public service and keeping an eye on it. So anyway, that's it.
Great, thank you very much, Barbara. We appreciate your input. And Nikki, does anyone else want to speak? No? Okay, so we'll bring it back to the board here, and we will close our public hearing.
Wait. So I'd like to follow up on Barbara's question.
Okay, go ahead, Holly.
The decision making behind the proposal of that additional increase above and beyond the pay raise? Above
Go
and
ahead, Jill. Jill, could you, or Vicky, one of you address the compaction element of the salaries?
Yeah, I can address it. So labor negotiations happened, 3 years ago, and wages at that point in time were very far behind what industry standard was. And so the district did agree to a very generous 4% increase over 3 years. And that's on average over and above a COLA. Usually a COLA is like 2.5 or 3%. So it was a little bit above that. But even though the 4% is above that, it really was not addressing the wage changes when minimum wage was going up $1 a year. And the first 2 years that I was here, that minimum wage went up, we did not adjust the full scale. We addressed the positions that were being impacted, but we did not address the full scale. And so what that created was an environment whereby you had one employee that was getting moved up, but the rest of the employees were not. And so you had a compaction issue between appropriate salary differences between the different people that were working here. And so I will share with you that Vicki actually recommended, because we did do a survey of what was happening at the other districts. And Vicki actually recommended something much higher than 3.5%, but we went ahead with the 3.5%. So that's why our recommendation is what it is. So I hope I answered your question, Holly.
And is there a page that talks about the increases in the benefits?
There's no increases in benefits. It's just the wage. And Vicki, can you remind me what tab the wage is on?
It's on tab. I think
Charts
it's
on tab 4. Yeah, it's on tab 4.
Yeah.
About 4 pages in.
On tab 4. There you go.
Page 4.
There you go.
Yeah. So our receptionist starts at $14 an hour. We've got a park maintenance worker too that is starting at $15.91. So you can see that those are very low, very close. Current minimum wage right now is 13. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
going up to 14 in December.
Right.
In January.
So we're right there. And like I said, those positions had already been adjusted upward and the rest of the positions have not. And so you need an appropriate space between different workers that are more skilled and have more responsibility than your other workers that are being paid less. And so we were losing that separation between those different responsibilities and wages.
Thank you, Jill. Holly, did you have more you wanted to ask?
No. Can you tell us?
Pretty good.
Can you tell us what steps the major employees are currently at?
I
don't have that information right in front of me at all.
Yeah, and that really it shouldn't weigh too much. It shouldn't weigh too heavily into your decision because someone can leave and then we can start someone at any point in time. Depending on
their experience and
yeah.
And actually that gave me a question. So the budget that you have presented, this includes the employees at their current steps.
Yes, and
Okay.
yes, and an estimate of a step increase because we do get an annual step increase. Generally.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Calculation of what those increases will be, other than this is the current wage, right?
No, no, Holly, this is the wage scale that we would use given the 4% increase from the MOU and a 3.5% increase for compaction.
Okay, so somebody said this is the current wage. This is the proposed wage increases.
This is proposed, but
Yes.
if you look at what we were trying to explain, I believe, is the part-time positions. If you look at the part-time positions down at the bottom,
right,
those have all been increased based on minimum wages. So
yes,
they're already increased, and they already have an increase built into them. So we're only asking for the increase for the full-time people.
okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Question, if I can, Director Scobie?
Yes.
General Manager, remind me, because I don't have it in front of me. Step raises, are those automatic or recommended upon annual review?
They're recommended upon annual review, and we work pretty closely with our employees. Also, they were 5% up until our last negotiations, and now they're at 2.5%. So new employees are increased at 2.5%. Older employees that have been here historically are at a 5%. So until step 9, and then at step 9 they go up 2.5%. So people are on a variety of steps in here, and there is an annual review that triggers the step increase.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Did you have more, Eric?
Well, I would be interested to hear from any of the other directors if they have any thoughts or comments on that, because I understand the need for this, to level this out. I've seen this in other places. I've seen it not just school districts, but I've talked with a couple of other business folks. And actually a superintendent who just this last year had to do this exact same thing with classified staff, even in the middle of recognizing that they might have to do staffing cuts, but trying to get the schedule level. I also recognize this is a difficult time to be proposing something like that. So I want to hear from some of the other directors, because you and I have gotten to talk with this a little more. If there's any other comments from the other directors on this, any other thoughts?
So you're recommending this, Eric, after your discussions in budget and admin?
Yes, I am. I recognize we're in COVID, and it's hard to talk about that kind of an increase. So if I were honest, I'd say I'm torn on both. I value the employees and want to support that. I also recognize we don't know what's coming. So that's why I'm coming to this, wanting to hear from the other directors, their perspective and experience on this for my decision.
Well, I have a comment. After hearing that it hasn't been adjusted for 2 years, I'll get to you, Ellie. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
That's if it hasn't been done for 2 years, then it is definitely time. And so that's my perspective. It needs to be done. You can't have that compaction at the bottom of the scale throughout the entire scale. So, Ellie, you wanted to add something?
I basically go right along with Eric. The timing is not in our favor with all this pandemic and close the pools and this and that and the other. And I think we're doing pretty well going along with the program that's laid out for us. I really do. Thank you.
Okay, board members, any further discussion?
Are you talking just this piece or anything?
No, just on our item right here on our preliminary budget.
Great.
So our negotiations and the first pay raises were 2 years ago, Jill?
Our contract is up at the end of next fiscal year. So in June 2021 is when our contract ends. So we're on our 3rd year of our contract.
Okay, so what Eric's, no, I'm sorry, what Director Scobie said about not having the increase for the last 2 years, that's true? There, from the time this original current contract was negotiated?
No. So we've done the negotiated 4% increases, but a separate increase related to minimum wage has not been done. And so we adjusted things on the lower end of the scale, and we adjusted part-time wages, but none of your superintendent, your foreman, your park maintenance worker twos, your CCNR officer, all of those folks did not receive any benefit when the minimum wage went up. And so you have lower, less skilled employees that are making more money, but your other employees are not. And there is a compaction issue because generally speaking, you have a wage scale that's well thought out. It's based in some assessment of your industry standards, and there should be separation of the different levels of responsibility with, you know, certain pay incentives and things like that. And so I think that the 3.5% equates to about $17,000. It's not significant. And while I get that we're in a pandemic right now, I think that whoever works here has to be paid a fair wage and has to have a reasonable workload.
I think what was missing was where are we showing that increase, the 17K increase to the budget?
So it's difficult to tally because our wages are
understood.
You know, not subtotaled, all of our wages and benefits. We also have made reductions to help us with this so that people are paid a fair wage. We have made reductions in overtime, and we have also made reductions in part-time staff. So, right. And those are the adjustments that we have made so that we can do something like this for the employees that are here.
Okay, so that's, I think, for me, that was what was missing, was what was the financial impact of the increases.
Yeah.
Understanding that we had provided assistance over the last couple of years, and having been on the board for so many years and having been coming to meetings for many years, I've always known that we've underpaid our staff. Mm-hmm. So I think that I guess then my only question is in understanding that Ms. Neibauer recommended a higher base increase. How did you come to the 3.5? Was that between the two of you, as the general manager and the finance officer?
Yeah, I mean, I think we vetted this with the budget and admin committee, but yeah, I felt that 4% and then a 7% adjustment on top of that was too much at one time. We are coming up into labor negotiations, and so, but I also recognize that we had done nothing to several classifications when minimum wage went up, and so I felt it was only fair for us to at least do this 3.5%.
So just to be clear on how the increases are implemented, mm-hmm. Is it a total of 11, or is it a 7.5 COLA? Where does the 3.5 get reconciled from, adjusted from?
So
does that make sense?
That's all right. So when there is like we negotiated for 4% wage increases, and now we're going to add a 3.5%, what will happen, the mechanics of that is that you take 7.5% and you apply that across the board to all of the wages and the wage scale.
Okay.
And Vicki, if I'm understanding you, this wage scale is the proposed wage scale that the budget is based on.
That's correct.
Okay. And then the 3.5, is that calculated from the increase or from the current base?
It's from the current base.
So the 3.5 is added, and then there's a 7.5% COLA.
No.
No.
You have a 4% raise for the, based on the MOU, then a 3.5% raise based on the minimum wage compaction issue.
Okay.
So that is a total of 7.5%.
Okay.
That's how it works.
Across the board.
Yes.
Thank you.
Full-time people and
Right.
permanent full-time people.
Permanent full-time people. And then the increase of the minimum wage goes into effect in December for the other hourly employees.
Yes. There
Part-time.
will be another minimum wage increase in January, I believe.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And Director Morrison, if I can, just for your reference, in the first tab from the very first report, there is where you can find the net increase dollar figure.
Yeah, I knew that. Jill, we talked about that today.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure, because
Yeah.
it sounded like you weren't sure where that came from. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Because I had calculated that out too, and that 3.5% is around $17,000, $18,000 out of that.
Understood.
Okay.
Because, yeah, understood. I'm just trying to reconcile it with the unknown digits of our loss of recreation revenue.
Right.
And still employing people. And what our plan is going to be for that if we cancel all our programs and if pool doesn't open till August. And
I think that
you know,
COVID,
yeah, you know, our concern for our community, we're in charge of the money. So thank you.
COVID is a temporary issue. I understand that there may be lasting long-term economic impacts to this. You know, it's a little, right now I'm glad I'm not Nevada. The state of Nevada has a 28% unemployment rate. So,
And probably 28% increase in their infection rate.
Yeah. So I think that staff do have tools in their pockets to deal with this temporary, if it truly is temporary, to deal with this temporary issue by either doing furloughs, not doing programs, you know, not spending on essential services and things like that. So we do have some tools in that. I think that creating community right now is going to be extremely important. Director Morrison and I talked about that earlier today, is finding a way to create community in Cameron Park. So I think that that's going to be really important. So I can't remember the road I was going down, but just know that we do have some, if it is a long-term economic downturn where we're going to have to consider staff layoffs, then we will do that. But again, I think my philosophy has always been pay a fair wage, have a reasonable workload, and you should have pretty good employee retention.
Yeah.
And it's worth recognizing in this, just to follow up what you said, Jill, for our consideration, staff has already been sacrificing and working up to this point, and I want to acknowledge that and thank them for the sacrifices they've made. I'm grateful that they're able to have jobs, and I'm grateful that they have worked with us to keep these things going, to prepare us. We're in a good position to kick off when things start up again.
Right.
So. Amen, Eric. You're right.
So.
We have company.
So just to add to my fellow director's consideration on this piece, I guess it comes down to how much is that really going to impact our budget versus how much it impacts our staff. So if we recognize that services roll back later in the year, they don't kick up as far as quickly, then we will have to make accommodations budget-wise and staffing and hours and all that, and in line with what happens. So as I'm looking at this, I'm just not sure that the bottom line justifies worrying about it. And I want to bounce that off of my fellow directors.
Say that again, if it's.
Meaning the bottom line of adding this 3.5.
Yeah.
And that's at full hours, full salary, everything's going well. If we don't have as much, all of that, unfortunately, there might be continued things that we do now, but it accordingly reduces. And at that point, I'm not sure the difference is
Worth it.
Yeah.
I can tell you it's
worth worrying
meaningful.
about, meaning.
Yeah,
It's meaningful to employees, yes.
Yes, and that's my point, is that, yeah, it's meaningful to employees.
When I say it's not worth it us quibbling over.
Right.
So.
Well, thank you everybody for that in-depth discussion. And anything else on your minds that you want to discuss on this agenda item?
This is Felicity. I just want to say I do support the budget as proposed, and thank the committee for the lots of hard work and homework that's gone into it.
This is Ellie, and I agree with Felicity.
Wonderful. How about we have a motion?
Meaning for the full budget?
Well, this is a preliminary budget that we're discussing.
Correct.
So,
That's what I'm saying. You're making a motion on the budget as a whole.
I'm making. I'm asking for a motion to let's see.
Accept the
approve
preliminary budget.
Yes.
So hold on. Was this a public meeting? A public?
Yes.
We have to close the public commentary.
We did.
I believe I did that.
Okay, good.
Yes, she did.
Thank you.
This is Felicity. I move to approve the budget as presented.
This is Ellie. I will second the approval for the preliminary budget.
All right, we have a first and a second. Jill, could you please go through and call a poll vote, please?
Yeah. Director Scobie?
Aye.
Director Easton?
Aye.
Director Carlson?
Aye.
Director Wooten?
Aye.
Director Morrison?
Aye.
Congratulations.
All right, there we go. We have a balanced budget, preliminary budget passed for fiscal year 2020-21. This is a preliminary budget, and we will be seeing this again in August. Is that right?
August.
August.
Beginning of in our August for the final, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So moving on to our next agenda item is number 10, and that is to approve resolution 2020-14, declaring the intention to continue assessments for the fiscal year, preliminary approving engineers report, and providing for notice of public hearing for the landscaping and lighting districts. So why don't we go ahead and have staff give us a rundown of that.
So before I do that, if Whitney, Kate, Jed, who am I missing? I think you're all welcome to stay on, but you're also welcome to sign off. Mike Grassley, if I could keep you through the LLAD, this next one, and then you can go. And thanks everyone for your work.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I'll go.
Thank you.
Oh, come on, Jed.
Yeah. See you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Hope so.
Have a great
Thank you.
meeting.
Bye.
Thanks, Kate.
Okay, this is a resolution to declare your intention to continue the assessments for the LLADs. We are not proposing any increases at this point in time, and basically you are by approving this resolution, you are setting up a public hearing for next month to approve the engineer's report. And this engineer's report, I think we talked about this a little bit. This engineer's report is based on our budget, but it's not the same as the budget because it is developed on a different time frame. And the purpose of an engineer's report is for setting these tax assessments. So we've worked with SCI in getting these tax assessments set. We're not proposing any increases, and we'd like to set a public hearing for next month.
Great, thank you. Board members, do you have any questions regarding this? I have a question.
Felicity, I don't have any questions. It's Felicity.
Hello.
Thank you. Ellie, did you?
Yes, we'll be getting some information prior to the meeting, though, that we can read or scan, whatever.
Yes, is the engineer's report in here?
It's
yes.
in the electronic version.
Oh, it is here.
Yeah.
That's the report you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I actually have a question. A lot of our LLADs don't have escalators in them. So we're stating that we're not increasing our assessments, but I believe our hands are tied and we can't increase the assessments. Is that correct?
There are several districts that have escalators that we could, but they are healthy districts.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board member, from the board?
I think it's worth recognizing as you all are looking at this that LLAD committee, ad hoc committee has done work on this, and you see that in the budget. We do recognize there are some of these funds that still staff will be working on some resolutions too, and that part of that being they have fixed assessments, and now PG&E costs a little more than it did 20 years ago, particularly for some of those just lighting only districts. So just making sure we're all clear that this is simply for the assessments. We've got just a little work left to do before we bring final recommendations to the board on the funds themselves. Just making sure that's clear to everyone.
So I see Holly is not on her screen, and I know that Holly and I had a conversation earlier today about an interest in resuming the LLAD ad hoc committee. Is that right, Holly?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We did not finish our work. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So I concur with Eric. Yes.
All right, so let's go ahead and no other further comments from the board. Let's go ahead and take it out to the public. Nikki, is there anyone? No public, okay. All right, then that means we're bringing it back to the board. And how would you like to proceed? Does anyone want to make a motion?
This is Felicity. I'd like to move to approve the item. I'm looking for the wording.
Just schedule a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to move to approve the scheduling of a public hearing for the landscaping and lighting districts. Does that work for?
Okay, yeah, item 10.
Item 10.
Yes.
If you just read item 10.
Okay, so this is Felicity. I'm going to take another stab. Thanks for your patience. I move to approve item 10, resolution 2020-14, declaring the intention to continue assessments for the fiscal year, preliminarily approving engineer's report and providing for notice of public hearing for the landscaping and lighting districts.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And we have a second.
Dr.
So Director Morrison seconded. If we could have a poll vote, please. Jill?
Director Scobie,
Aye.
Director Easton,
Aye.
Director Carlson,
Aye.
Director Wooten,
Aye.
and Director Morrison.
Aye.
All right, so resolution 2020-14, declaring the intention to continue assessments for the fiscal year, preliminarily approving engineer's report, and providing for the notice of public hearing for the landscaping and lighting districts has passed 5-0. Moving on to item 11, elect member to CSDA Board of Directors, seat C in the Sierra Network for the term 2021 to 2023. So Jill, you want to kick that off, or Vicky, whoever's in charge?
Or Nikki. So we brought this forward to the Budget and Admin Committee. Last year, if the board remembers correctly, we didn't have time to bring it to committee before taking it to the board. So we just brought it to the full board, and I think everybody had kind of a tally sheet, and we tallied up the tally sheet. This year we took it to the Budget and Admin Committee for them to review the candidates and make a recommendation. That recommendation is there, but all of the candidates' bios are and statements are in the packet if you'd like to talk about all the candidates.
Okay, board members, is there any discussion regarding these candidates that you'd like to have?
So were there only 3 candidates? I can't remember what you said, Jill.
Yeah, 3.
There were just the 3. So my concern is having a recommendation out of committee. I think that this is a board decision, and while I can understand the recommendation, I think we can see for ourselves on these boards and make our own decisions. Well, I appreciate
we vote on each decision, or what?
We vote on one of the candidates of the 3.
Yeah, that's what we were going to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so Director Morrison suggesting that perhaps it not go through committee first. But needless to say, do we want to discuss any of the other candidates besides the procedure that it came to the board?
This is Felicity, and I agree with Director Morrison that we need to each make up our own mind. I appreciate that the committee did some homework, and I'm happy to make up my own mind. So I feel good about being able to vote on this.
Jill, did you want to add something?
I was wondering, Nikki, do you remember what the date was that this needs to be submitted by?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
ASAP.
Yeah, I think it was.
I can't wait for another board meeting.
No, I think it's the end of this month, beginning of July.
Yeah.
If I remember right from our last agenda.
That language is on the vote. Means another month they don't have a full board.
Oh.
One question, please. Do all of these candidates live in Cameron Park?
No.
Or are they moving in from I mean, they're all saying different areas.
Well, this is a seat C in the network for the larger state board of directors.
Got it.
Well, hopefully everybody, the 3 candidates were in the packet, and hopefully all the board members were able to review them and have an idea of who they'd like to recommend. We can definitely change the process if the board so sees fit and not send it through committee first. But hopefully everybody did read what's there. And is there any objection from the board to going ahead and electing a member today? Or making a vote to elect a member?
No, I think I'm fine.
Okay. Okay.
No, I don't have a problem with it.
So if you're looking
All right.
for recommendations,
Motion. You can also just do this with a motion.
so I move to nominate Patrick Larkin.
Yes.
While I, as a general manager, I think it would be nice maybe to have some new blood. It seems like one of the other candidates has been on the board since 1998. And while I think that is fantastic, sometimes you need to have some different blood. It's my recommendation. Or my motion.
Yeah, Ellie, did you want to make a comment?
Well, I was going to make my nomination, but I believe the young lady beat me to it, and it was Patrick Larkin.
Oh.
Well, I kind of agree with Director Morrison in that I kind of thought new blood was it is a good idea. I mean, I support that. I did hear the gentleman we recommended speak at one of the CSDA conferences that I went to, and he was very knowledgeable. I had a lot of respect for him, and so
yeah.
But I liked Patrick Larkin as well. So I'm flexible on those two, but that's why I liked the one who'd been on the board for a long time, because I had hear him speak and I thought he was very knowledgeable. But I'm all right with either of those candidates.
Ellie, are you seconding my motion?
I'd like to hear from Eric first.
I recommended based on the experience, and I hear what Director Morrison is saying, and yes, agree that in some cases fresh blood is good. I think that's a better answered if everybody has a context of the other board members to make sure that there's a balance across the board. So I don't know if anybody has looked at the board to see how long from different networks other members have been a part of this. Where is Mr. Campa, sorry, would actually bring experience that's needed. Does anybody have any idea the length of term for other board members?
No, I used to know more, but I don't know the board as much as we used to have meetings at our district at the community center, and leadership would be there, but we haven't had that contact, so I don't know.
So I pulled up the CSDA Board of Directors. You've got Joel.
Yeah, there isn't a whole lot there in terms of how long they've been on the board.
Yeah.
I had looked at that.
Yeah.
We're just one district, like with LAFCO, there's many districts. And we're just one vote in the scheme of.
We have 3 board members in the Sierra Network district part of the board. There's 18, 19 board members in total?
Yeah, there's quite a few here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
And remind me, General Manager, how often these come up? It's a 2-year
2-year term.
Yeah, 2-year.
Okay.
Okay, we do have a motion on the table from Director Morrison. And do we have a second?
This is for Mr. Larkin?
Yes.
I will second that motion.
All right, let's go ahead and do a poll vote. Jill?
Director Scobie?
Aye.
Director Aston?
No.
Director Carlson?
Aye.
Director Wooten?
Aye.
Director Morrison?
Aye.
Okay, it looks like we have Patrick Larkin, right? That's a correct name, has now been, is our selection for our vote for the CSDA Board of Directors, and that has passed 4-1.
And I'll tell you that I know Patrick Larkin. He's very good. So I think that he'll serve you well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to our next item, our board information items. Item 12, general matters to and from. Those are always fun. Who would like to go first? Do we want staff? Do you want to tell us about some upcoming training and community meetings? I don't see any listed though.
I don't. A couple of board members have gotten this update, but let me tell everyone. I think we started receiving information from the county actually on Sunday, exchanging emails that the county was rolling out guidelines and approving us to start team sports so that our sports teams could resume practices and conditioning. They couldn't do team, games against another team, but they could do practices and conditioning. And so we were able to confirm that those sports teams, that is applicable to our gymnasium, our sports fields, and our pool. And so staff has worked all along to prepare for this day. But we are putting, now that we have those specific guidelines, we're putting the final touches on that. We are getting staff ready, and next week, our facilities will start being used by our sports teams. I have a follow-up email into the county, Don Ashton and Nancy Williams, inquiring about opening the community center, what those triggers might look like. I certainly know that we cannot necessarily have public meetings because you never know how many public people are going to show up. And so you can't control attendance and do your social distancing. But if it was pre-registration, if it was, everybody was socially distanced, all of those healthy precautions were in place. Is there an ability for us to do swim lessons, do fitness programs in the pool, open up the community center for some recreation programs, either for seniors or youth or families. So just know that we'll continue to engage. We want to make sure that we are supporting the county's objectives in combating COVID. COVID has increased, quite a bit over the last few weeks. And so I think that we're, as you all know, we're trying to protect our employees, but we also want to protect our residents. And so we just want to be very cautious about this and make sure we're doing it the right way. So anyway, but next week, we're going to take an important step forward, and then that's great news.
Will the pools open?
The pool will open for swim team.
Thank you, Jill. All right, let's go through matters to and from, and I'm going to just go through who's listed on my screen first. And it looks like, Holly, you're listed on the top here. Do you have any matters to and from?
Yeah, I talked to Jill about this today. We approved the transition of our credit card relationship to Umpqua Bank, and I have been concerned over the years that in our check registry, we only have listed the total dollar amount of the bill that we pay for the credit card usage. And I would like to request that we are able to see a listing of what each employee has purchased on their credit card. So there's actual transparency. And it shouldn't be that much, but just to have a review. And again, if there was any way for that to be for a board review only, I'm not sure how we could do that. Just somewhere that it can be reviewed.
I actually think that's a good suggestion, Holly. I don't think we can actually discuss all of the ins and outs here since it's not agendized, but perhaps that can be bounced over the Budget and Admin Committee and a discussion held there, and then we can get a report back on what that would look like, how much labor is involved, and so forth.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
That's a good comment. Anything else, Holly?
Nope, that's good.
All right, next in my line is Eric. Any matters to and from?
Just a little bug in everybody's ear to remind you, we all made a good effort this last year on training and webinars and such for our insurance, and I believe that continues into this next year. We still want to be doing that. The sooner we do it, the better. But also just reminding everybody, there are some great resources on the CSDA website. A lot of districts are trying to figure everything out now, and I've been tracking some of the discussions. There's just a lot of good information there, as well as some of the webinars that can be helpful for things coming up for us later this year. So I just encourage my fellow directors to continue to avail themselves of that resource and that training. I've really enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
Ellie, you're next on my list. Do you have any matters to and from?
Well, I'm not so sure it's a matter for us, but we're all aware of the meeting Sunday at the library. And apparently it was pretty peaceful. And I did talk to Sheriff DiAugustini by phone. I did not attend that meeting. And he said everything went along pretty well. And I was very glad to hear that, because I was kind of nervous about it, to be quite honest. It's so close, and I don't know. But that's about the only thing I had, something that came out that could have affected us, but did not. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Ellie. Felicity.
Dr. Scobie?
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, I had the wrong spot on my notes here. I had one other matter to and from, just so I don't have to circle back around. I wanted to thank Dr. Scobie and Dr. Carlson and the staff for their part in the potential candidates informational meeting this last week. It was really nice to make that available to our community and to see we had 6, 7, 8 members of the community attend that Zoom meeting. So that was really good to see. I'm hoping that trickles out to even more potential candidates looking at elections in the fall. So I just wanted to thank staff and my fellow directors who are a part of that for doing that. So just want to make sure that was there. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. All right. And Felicity, do you have matters to and from?
I did attend the Black Lives Matter event in Cameron Park at the library on Sunday, and got a chance to thank the members of the Sheriff's Department who were there. They were quite a ways off from the main part of the event, but there, I guess, to make sure everybody stayed safe. And I would estimate that there were maybe 250 people is my estimate. And
wow.
It was and these were people, these were local Cameron Park people and El Dorado Hills people. The event was organized by young ladies who are students here, high school students and college students in the area, arranged the event, and the crowd was a very young crowd. When I say young, I mean, you know, maybe up like 35 years old is young, right? And maybe 40, but there were teenagers, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s. So it was really interesting to see a slice of Cameron Park that I don't usually see at our meetings. And it was exciting to see these young women really taking a leadership role. They had an agenda and speeches, and the crowd generally had face masks on, and maybe they were not 6 feet apart, but they were probably 4 feet apart. And it was a really just generally positive event. And I didn't stay for the whole event, but they had invited a speaker from Sacramento, and they were waiting for the speaker from Sacramento. So that was, and I got a chance to speak for a couple minutes, and I want you to know that I pointed out that the CSD is having elections on November 3rd, and that people should consider running, because this was, like I said, this was a crowd we don't normally, just very active younger crowd that we don't normally see. So so that was the nature, that's my take of the event. I saw quite a few people. It was hard to recognize people with the masks and everything, but I did see a few people that I recognized in the crowd and got a chance to say hi. And I will say that the folks I saw were of the spectrum of political affiliations. So it was just kind of a heartwarming showing from the community. And you know, like Ellie, I reflect that. I was nervous. I will say I was nervous going to the event, but once I got there and saw that it was these local students that had organized it and it was positive and peaceful, I was assured. So
Well, I had a choice of going there or to the Elks because it was Flag Day.
Yeah,
And there were a lot of people showed up there too.
Well, and yeah, yeah, I think they're both very, you know, important American events.
Yes.
So it's good to see people participating. So that's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Felicity. Thank you, everybody. I have a few things to share. Yes, we did the candidate forum. One of the things I learned when I went to the CSDA training was, well, I didn't really learn. One of the speakers asked everyone in the audience, how many of you special districts have a succession plan? And that got me thinking. It's like, wow, we're not grooming anybody. You know, we kind of like beg and scrape. And wouldn't it be nice if we had a vibrant group of people who want to serve on the board, and that we, you know, it would be nice that our community would care enough that we'd have that. So I mean, we did have a lot in our last election that was fantastic. So I hope to do that again. So that's the candidate forum was very important. And when we first signed in, I'm like, oh no, there's more presenters than there are attendees. But it didn't end up like that. We did get enough attendees, so that was nice. I also have just wanted to share with you, I walk the Cameron Park Lake every day, and I am getting quite the earful from our fellow residents regarding the fishing line that is harming the animals. And I actually heard from another woman who said she tripped over it. So I've got some conversations going with staff to see if there's anything further we can do about it. And just to share, I've also
wait, what does that mean, the fishing line?
Oh, there is fishing line and tackle and hooks that's left along the walking trail and bank of the lake.
Yeah.
And it gets wrapped around the animals. There's been a dead muskrat. There's been injured birds. We've seen the goslings tangled up. It's very upsetting. I had one group, one couple. They were like crying. It was awful, and they were like, "We're not coming here anymore. We're going to get a refund from our passes," and it was not good. And then I saw her the next day. She goes, "No, we're not doing that. We're just like really very upset." So, and she's not the only one.
So
anyway, so
have we talked about with staff about any kind of a fine or any other really, you know, we've got our big fire signs up. What about something about the implications of leaving behind their hooks and their lines? Some kind of a metal sign that we can post. And then can staff be out, you know, at the end of the day and the beginning of the day, check those places where most people fish?
Well, we did a couple years ago. We put up new signs out in the park, and I don't know if it helped. I haven't seen much change, so I'm bringing it forward again. And whatever solution, I'm just bringing it to staff. Whatever solution comes forward, I'm sure it'll work its way up to the board. I just wanted to share at this point because it's just a concern I have that I want you guys to be aware of.
So what about some special waste receptacles that would allow for, you know, like needles to allow for the hooks to go in but not be taken out, something like that? A safety receptacle?
They wouldn't use it, trust me.
Well, again, this is kind of like a not agendized item on solving this. I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
That's terrible. Oh.
Holly, you could send in some, if your concerns as well, and we'll put staff on coming up with some sort of approach.
Yeah, Jill can talk to Mike and see if there's anything out there. There's got to be something out there for the fishing communities, you know, recreation departments that they use. There's got to be something out there. I managed here in Pacifica for years with Parks and Rec, and we had those kinds of buckets.
Okay, That's good to know.
Didn't see it.
And one final thing is I'm jumping into a group called the Citizens Climate Lobby and educating myself in that. So I hope to give you more information when I actually know anything. So at this point, I don't. Just letting you know I'm joining this group. So that's all I have. Anything else from anyone else? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our next item, our LAFCO. Holly?
So, LAFCO, we, like this meeting, we reviewed our yearly work plan, our final budget, and most significantly, we hired a consultant to produce the MSR, the Municipal Service Review, for the consolidation of the fire districts. So,
Wow.
less than a year to have that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We had some big decisions to make, whether to go forward to force some changes. And as you well know, there have been multiple elections to increase fees in order for fire districts to continue. We've had resignations from a resignation in particular from a really wonderful fire chief, and he has gone up to another fire district. And these decisions have to be made. It's on LAFCO's lap. And so we're looking forward to that. And hopefully within that time frame, even though we're having to spend the money for this massive report to consolidate these, you know, many, many, many fire districts that we have, hopefully within that time frame, some of these fire see the light and make some of their own decisions so that no one else has to. LAFCO. Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly, for the
Thank you for
update.
doing that.
Okay, moving on to our committee reports, budget and admin, and that would be our chair is Eric.
Yes, you've seen the product of our work tonight. So most everything that we did came forward. And I just want to echo again, I really am pleased with all the work that's gone into that this year for not just the 2 meetings we had, but all that staff did. And I've had a number of conversations with Vicki and Mike and Jill just to go fine tooth that, and really glad for the process and where we've come with that. Our next meeting, we'll be looking at proposals brought forward by Waste Connections for rates and contract and where that goes in the future, particularly looking at the new recycling site here in town, as well as the new facility up in Placerville. So we'll be bringing some of that to you next time. One thing I wanted to mention from Jed's comments tonight, just ask the general manager if you would please put on our next agenda to start the discussion about the allocation of those fire equipment funds. As he said, as he mentioned, that would be something the budget and admin should look at. In the budget, it's 10,000 and 90,000. In the definition, it's 10%, 90%. So I'd like to get that lined up, particularly looking at what I think might be a pretty big fire season. So I'd like to have us think those things through as a board before that comes. So if we could put that on the agenda, that'd be great. And that's all I have for budget and admin.
Great, thank you, Eric. Let's see, CCNRs, I believe that was canceled this month.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so does staff have anything they need to say on that?
We'll meet next month. We've got some items to bring forward.
Okay. And then fire and emergency services, that also was canceled. But I believe Ellie, we're waiting to hear back. They're getting their contract.
That's what I think. That's why it was canceled. They had a bit more to do before they could come back to us.
Yeah. training tower.
Mhm.
Yes.
I already told Cherie that we were going to go down the tower once it was up.
Are you going to be carried over the shoulder?
I want to see Jed do that.
Yeah,
I think that's our challenge.
Gary will do it.
Your
We'd like
head
to be a-
director went down a fire pole one time. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. And then Parks and Rec. I believe that
also
one
been- Yep.
was also canceled this month.
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
So,
we've got the survey results, which we reviewed. So we're getting the survey results and a funding strategy together. We're hopeful to meet with Parks and Rec before July 7th. We don't want to quite wait till July 7th. So,
oh yeah, that's right. It was postponed, not canceled.
right.
That was okay. So we will be having committee, those standing committee meetings, most of them next month.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. And then moving on to solar energy ad hoc, I believe, we'll have Jill talk about that, unless you want to, Eric.
Oh, I've got it. That's fine. You should have seen in your notes, ARC's put out the project pricing solicitation. So they had a list of over 30 potential vendors that went out to, that they notified, and there's likely others that could respond in a general RFP. So that'll be coming back to us in July. We're planning to meet as a committee once that happens and see what comes back to us. So I'm excited to see that first wave. One thing I did want to update, and this is whether it's you, Mike, or Jill, if you could update to us, one of the discussions from last time as a board was with our right sizing the fixtures on campus, whether we were going to be able to do on-bill payment and all of that. Mike, you've got an update on that for us?
So I can take care. So heard back from Brighton Energy Monday, and I met with Dan Daly, who's kind of the foreman for him. The district did get approved for the OBF financing for all of the for all of the rebatable items on the project. The issue was all of the items that are non-rebatable. There's a lot more hoops to jump through. It's about a 6 to 8 month process before they would even make a decision on the non-rebatable items. So that's kind of where we were at. The OBF for the rebatable stuff was about 16,000 and some change. And the non-refundable or non-rebatable stuff was about $23,000, which Jill and I decided to just pull it from the reserves.
Like we talked about.
Yeah.
So ideally it would have been the 100%, but that's about a 40-60 split.
Yeah, about 40% is financed with the OBF and the other 60 is not. The portion that the district paid for, it's about a 3.5 year buyback. And then we'll be reaping the savings, I guess, so to say. Brighton Energy did drop off all of their lights today, and they're starting the install tomorrow. So,
oh, beautiful.
They were just waiting for us. So
beautiful.
And once that's done, then we will be able to price an accurate size solar for the community center.
Yes. Exciting days. Thanks for that, Mike. That was the last piece on the
Mike,
solar ad hoc.
When are you thinking? I missed, you cut out there.
Thinking for
changeover?
Well, they're starting the install tomorrow.
Okay, I couldn't hear that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, they're going to start on all the exterior lights and then work their way in. We're hoping they can have it all done before the community center really starts to ramp back up again.
Oh, that's just, and so we'll actually have lights on the building in the.
Yep, we'll have new fixtures, and some of the ones that aren't working, it's because the ballasts are out. We can't get to them. I mean, it's
the ones on top of the building, like over the front of the facade.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I wondered if some of those were damaged by water. That's what I figured. Some of them were damaged. So it's good. We'll get up there and see what the heck's going on, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be there tomorrow when they start the install. So they'll let me know. And
go up in the cherry picker and get some photographs.
yeah, they'll keep me apprised on everything they find. So.
Good.
That's great.
That's great news.
Was there anything else, General Manager, on
No.
Solar Ad Hoc?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So that's
Okay. And then LLAD ad hoc. I heard there's some, looks like you guys are going to be meeting again.
Mhm.
that. Mm-hmm.
So you guys going to set a date, and when do you think that's going to happen?
Probably July, so we'll be ready for a report back in August. So
Okay, good.
It would tie nicely, I think, with the final budget.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, well, it looks like we have made it through our agenda, and the next item is adjournment.
Yeah, I just want to say we really dodged a bullet with that fire on Friday. I don't know how many of you had ash falling, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if we hadn't had that rogue rain cell, I don't know what would have happened. It was already at over 5,000 acres. 5,000 acres within a couple hours, you guys.
Yeah.
So have you guys all seen the overheads of the paths, the swaths that have been cut on the BLM? I mean, that work, thank goodness that work got done.
Yeah. Yeah. If you drive down Scott Road
Oh yeah.
off of White Rock, you can see where it jumped Scott Road.
Yeah.
And it was literally just running because the wind was pushing it.
Such beautiful territory. I used to drive to WebEx in that back road and see the Brahma bulls and all the cattle out there, that whole beautiful landscape where they're going to build, right?
Yes.
All those houses would have been wiped out. I'm telling you that was, we really lucked out.
All right, folks, it looks like we are here. Do we make a motion to adjourn? Anybody want to make a motion?
Holly
I'll
Morris,
make 'em.
motion to adjourn at.
I'll second.
And a second. All in favor?
Beat you to it.
Aye.
All right. Great. We're adjourning 5-0. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everybody. Good work.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.